Alright, welcome back to another session. This is my second league on MTGO. This time I'm playing Sheoldred, the fan favorite MBC variant that's currently available in our format. Yes, I was testing the don't automatically stack abilities, and then I always forgot to turn it on again because I thought it was quite annoying to manually stack your triggers, and also because it costs quite some time. In the first match I was playing against Nathan on Marchesa. I've played this particular matchup a couple of times already, and so far it always looked slightly in my favor. So my starting hand is kinda exotic. You would probably not keep it here, but I wanted to test Skeletal Scrying, and I also thought if he doesn't have too many creatures, the Maze of If is helpful to grind the long game. Fortunately for me, I draw an Orcish Bowmaster, while he only has a Dragon Rage Channeler available. Nice target for my cut down. Oubliette is also quite a good card. I can phase out his commander once he plays it. And there's a Chain Lightning for the Bowmaster, that's fine. Still have the army token to pressure a bit. Already on 14 HP. So now there's probably a counter spell for Sheoldred, and I can choose between whether or not to play her or leave my mana open for the Skeletal Scrying. But I decide to go for more pressure. And there's a Remand, that's not too bad, which means I can recast Sheoldred next turn for 4 again. So it might be interesting to know that he is I'm not sure if former or still playing Canadian Highlander. So his list features a couple of less lands than the average commander deck would do. I think he's only running 31 or 32 lands. Many people wouldn't do that in our format, but he's doing good. He's compensating the missing lands with cantrips mostly. That's a thing you often do in Highlander. And here's the first big card he's playing, another Nethergoyf for 4/5. That's quite a big boy. And yeah, I have an opportunity, a window to play Sheoldred here, which I will very likely do after resolving my Durus to check if he has any interaction, any force or something that could deny my cast. I choose to get rid of the Molten Collapse. Cut down can't target my Sheoldred. And there is a Mystic Sanctuary that at this time I don't really realize he can get back the Molten. There's also Reanimate, but there aren't any targets available apart from Orcish Bowmaster, which is a fine target, to be honest. So yeah, here comes the tempo play with the Brazen Borer. I couldn't take that since it's a creature, and he decides to reanimate the Bowmaster. Probably a fine play, going down to 11. Yeah, and that's at that moment I was kind of clicking too fast and not really realizing that he chose the Molten Collapse. And then I do a tiny mistake. It's a bit unfortunate that I have the Meathook Massacre. I have to go for the Maze, which is good against the Nethergoyf. Saves me a lot of time, but the Meathook Massacre will only minus for 4 right now, unless I draw a 5th Swamp in order to get rid of his entire board. And in this case, since I casted Sheoldred, it would also take care of my Sheoldred. Usually I'm not a control player at all. I enjoy MBC. I've played Tevesh and Miara back in the days when the partner rule was not yet invented, so to say. That was a very cool deck. I enjoyed it a lot. And we've had Sheoldred featured on the channel a couple of weeks ago before MH3 was released. Martin played it and it was quite enjoyable. I tried it featuring the Tendrils line first, but I ended up cutting it because it was too clunky to me, and most often you end up with the single pieces. You can't really make use of them. So I decided to include more relevant cards and less situational. So there's the 6th land. The problem is I can just go for the Massacre. Yeah, that was, but probably there was a mistake, because the thing is, if he has a counterspell, which he does not, then I will just tap my whole board for the Massacre. If he has no counterspell, if he can't find a counterspell off of the Brainstorm, then I will get rid of the whole board. If I play Sheoldred, he finds a counterspell, then I can maybe take the counterspell or bait it for Sheoldred. I still have control with the Nethergoyf and the Mace in combination. But here, there is a Snapcaster Mage that will cast the Molten Collapse again, so Sheoldred will be dealt with again. And now that he's down to 1 mana, I can still think about Meathook Massacre next turn. There's a Thundering Falls. And an attack for 2 again. So now again the question is one card in hand. I think it's cut down. Should have the information. For some reason, I think I did not choose. Well, I didn't play the Meathook Massacre because it still doesn't kill the Nethergoyf. So I decide to play the Inquisition, discard his True Name Nemesis. And at this point, I decide to cast Oubliette to get rid of the Nethergoyf, and next turn I can mace the Snapcaster Mage. And then I still get 2 damage from the Orcs. He hasn't cast Brazen Borrow so far, and there's still Marchesa open to be played. So far, Skeletal Scrying was not really good, I have to say. I have a couple of cards in graveyard, but it also costs life and it costs a lot of mana to activate a card. And there's Marchesa. He has 1 card left in hand. And now there has to be... Yeah, that's a land with a potential counterspell open, but I have no chance other than casting the Meathook Massacre and hoping that this one will resolve and I clear the board. It gives me back 4 life if this one resolves, but he still has a Brazen Borrower available, which then again I can control with Mace of If. But I have to hope that I somehow get down Sheoldred again. And yeah, he will cast the Brazen Borrower. Why not? Mana is open. And now he can just recast Marchesa. And slowly but surely we're entering dangerous territory. So if he has an interaction for 1, I draw a Necrodominance. Would be awesome to have that in addition to Sheoldred, in combination with Sheoldred on field. So I cannot recast Sheoldred because she currently costs 8, I think. I have only 7 mana available. The thing is, I can cast Skeletal Scrying. It's 1 spell, I pay 4 life, or even 5, and I draw the cards. So what I do first is not going all in on the Skelett is Crying. I just pay 3 mana and draw 3 cards and see if I find a land or something. I do find a land. And now it's a bit... I can cast a Mind Twist. He goes down to 0 cards. Necro Dominance at that point is pretty much useless, so I decide to go for the Mind Twist to make sure he's empty-handed and in top deck mode. It would be super cool to play the Profane Tutor too, but that's not possible here. And the optimal play would be to get down Sheoldred. He has no interaction for it, and next turn I can bring down Necro Dominance. That's, by the way, one motivation for me to play this deck. Modern Horizons 3 has not brought too many upgrades for Sheoldred, but Necro Dominance is a big one. And there's also Consuming Corruption, the 2 mana spell that deals damage equal to the amount of swamps, and you gain that much life. I think it deals to creatures and even planeswalkers, if I'm not mistaken. So that's quite a good spell. And the Necrodominance is just great. Like, Necropotence is already very good against control or these mid-rangey matchups, but since Necrodominance draws the cards, you even get some life back, which is very good. And there's an Unholy Heat. That's a bit unfortunate. He has Delirium active. So again, I'm losing my Sheoldred. So he's down on 3 HP. There are a couple of outs. So let's say I draw a board wipe. So actually he's losing 1 life because he was killing my creature, so he's down to 2. I could find a tutor, which could find me a Sign in Blood, then I can let him draw 2 cards and he would lose 2 life. There's also the newer card from what was this set called? Outlaws of Thunder Junction, which lets you draw 2 cards. No, 3 cards actually, and then you lose 3 life for 3 black mana. So I cast Sheoldred again, I have a land drop, and he has a counterspell available. All the good cards. I have 1 more turn, unless he draws a bolt or something. But it really, really has to be a tutor or something that helps me out here. Board wipe would do. Mutilate, for example. Damnation, something like this. Mishra's Bauble is fine. Can play the Bauble, he commits a crime, he gets more card advantage. I think he had both Baubles, right? Yeah, there's an Urza's Bauble in the graveyard, and now there's a Mishra's Bauble too. So that's a good position for him. As I said, going down to 1. He has no bolt or any other additional damage. Draws 2 cards, so he's up to 4. Likelihood of... And there's my Damnation. So I draw the board wipe. I'm not quite sure. I think it resolved. And I gained back life. It did not. Or did it? No, it did not. There was a wash away. Okay. And at that point I can't do anything else. And there's a concession and I have to go to game 2. So yeah, quite a close matchup here. I drew a lot of lands. His advantage obviously is from drawing less lands that he has more spells that grant him some action once it's needed. But of course, if you have to dig for land drops, you also have a huge tempo loss. Gitaxian Probe is quite good. It's not too powerful. The Virtue isn't that good against him because Marchesa has 4 toughness. Necropotence is good. He definitely has to keep up a counter for that. There's a Go for the Throat, which he doesn't know of. That's also fine. counterspell. I mean, the fetch land is going for a surveil land as most often. Surveilling an unearth. And there's a young Peasy. That's a nice target for my Go for the Throat. I think his initial plan was to delay the Necropotence with my Virtue. And now I have a window for the Necropotence and it resolves, which is pretty good. I get to draw 4 cards and refill my hand. In any matchup in which the life loss isn't too relevant, these 2 cards, Necropotence and Necrodominance, really have the time to shine. And there's a Marchesa cast. That's a bit of an offensive cast to me. So here, yeah, I think I'm just going for the Toxic. Getting rid of Marchesa. He has 6 cards in hand. Unfortunately, my deck is not lining up too good. I can go for the Dark Ritual. And now he has a Mental Misstep, which is a bit unlucky. I could have also chosen to go for Check for Traps and then just cast Sheoldred, but that would leave Marchesa on board, and I don't feel comfortable with him getting too much card advantage. So here I actually clicked too fast and forgot to activate my Necropotence, which was definitely a mistake. And I'm also sometimes still using the mouse instead of my keyboard. Which is something I should get used to. Not using the mouse, I mean, I should. You should always use the keyboard for your hotkeys. So unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to play Sheoldred and Check for Traps. Yeah, and he goes for Malcolm. I get some hand info. And then I can exile his counterspell, whatever he has in hand. It's not too spectacular. Stern Scolding is pretty much useless against me. I have 2 creatures in deck. Or maybe 3. I have Bowmaster, Grief, and Turok. So I get rid of the Cling to Dust, I think I took. And now I can use the remaining mana to... No, I didn't take the Cling. I took the other spell because he just clinged in response. But yeah, now I can refill. I won't go for the full refill because that would cost me 6 life. I did go for the full refill, almost a full. I used 5 additional cards instead of 6. Okay, I'm down to 8. I feel quite fine with that. He's down to 3 cards. There is a Mystic Sanctuary to which I can respond by cracking my Nihil Spellbomb. That's what he's looking for, I think. And my hand is still not looking too crazy. I found a Cabal Coffers, which is nice in addition to the cave. So at some point I might be able to find an Urborg with the cave. Yeah, now I have several options. Maybe I want to bring down the Arcane Signet. I mean, Cabal Coffers gives me some buffer against spells like Mana Leak, Miscalculation, and stuff like this. So I can recast her. Or actually cast her for 4 mana. It's the 4 cast this game, the first cast. And there is a remand, which is okay. I can still play the Arcane Signet and just pass the turn. There's no need to activate the Necropotence. I have 6 cards in hand. I have my land drop next turn. I have 3 instant sorceries in graveyard for my Dark Petition. Depending on what he brings up, I have to use that one and search for another spell. Depending on whether or not Sheoldred sticks to the board, I could, for example, go for Necro Dominance in addition and draw a couple of cards and regain some life. But yeah, let's see. I'm not quite sure how the next 5 minutes look like. This matchup is some time ago. And he takes some time to decide what he's going to surveil. There's a Preordain as a follow-up. He's down to 2 cards. So at some point, I think he needs to cast Marchesa, and he decides not to do that. Probably to interact with Sheoldred. And now I have 5 mana available. I cast my commander. If he has a counterspell, I can just recast her from the command zone because I have 1 mana in pool and 5 on board. There's a wash away, cast as a cancel. That's great. I'm just going to recast her. He's down to 2 cards, so I can even think about using the Necropotence. Going to 6. 6 is a fine life total, I think. And adding a few more cards. And now he really has to find something in order to deal with Sheoldred. There's a Tishana on board, probably blocking. Again, there's still the Stern Scolding. We just get rid of the Flame Slash since it's still useless. And now I go for the Dark Petition, and I think I'm going for Necro Dominance just to draw more cards. The tutoring actually costs some time because you need to go through several lines and decide what to... Okay, I actually searched for a removal spell here, which is also okay. And the Besiege can still find a Necro Dominance, correct. And then I can gain back some cards and gain back some life. Go for combat. It's a bit risky if I would have no information about his hand, then there could be a bolt waiting to roast me. But I know it's a Stern Scolding, so I'm safe. I have to discard down to 5. Necrodominance limits your hand size to 5 cards. And he has 2 cards in hand. I have Sheoldred on board with lots of card advantage available. And now I can even cast a Virtue. There's only one target actually. And now I can even pay more life to filter for some quality. And I find a DT. There's a Stomp cast at the end of turn. But I go up to 14. That's way too much damage for him to deal in one turn. Discarding all the lands, I'm left with lots of quality. He goes down to 2. So now he can't use his cantrips anymore. Cast the Giant as a blocker, but yeah, chances are high that I just have some interaction in hand. I get a Tishana's Tidebinder on field. And yeah, I can just cast the Oubliette, get rid of the Bonecrusher Giant, and just win the game this turn. And since I only have 5 minutes left on clock, of course, he waits until I win instead of conceding. That makes perfectly sense. We go over to game 3. And now, as I said, 5 minutes on the clock is rough. And I think this would have been an interesting one. In paper, could have maybe won that one. Would have definitely gone to turns. But yeah, 5 minutes is rough with Sheoldred in the command zone. He's on the play. There's a Mystic Sanctuary, not the best land on turn 1. I've fetched directly away my Marsh Flats because I'm a bit scared of things like Tails and Stifle and stuff. Yeah. So there's a Necropotence again, which is good on the long run, but I'm not super sure if I have that much time. Maybe I can resolve it. I mean, the Cling can do some stuff. Now I can try to resolve it. Okay, I decide to go for the Profane Tutor first. And there's a Malcolm now. And that pressures actually, because I have no good removal spell. I can Cling his Sleight of Hand end of turn. Maybe I find something. But yeah, it's difficult. There's a peak, so he has some hand information again. And it's quite interesting that he has, in a 3-color deck, he has 3 different mono blue producing lands on field. And I think I was about to search for I'm not quite sure. I think I searched for a hand disruption. So I have to cast Sheoldred in order to pressure. It taxes his draw off of Malcolm. He would lose 4 life a turn if he can't get rid of Sheoldred. And the force spike is actually really, really good. I would have, yeah, you never know. Didn't particularly play around that. Otherwise, I would have cast Dark Ritual. With maybe a follow-up spell, I would have definitely do that. But that one is quite good. And now, yeah, I search for Thoughtseize because I want to bring down the Necropotence, and then now you see his hand. There's like Counterspell, Logic Note, Remon, Tails, and Subtlety. So he's playing only blue lands, and he has all the blue spells in his deck. That's quite ridiculous. And at that point, I was like, well, okay, I'm not really sure whether or not I win this. Tails End is a bit of a random discard. Obviously, I should have chosen the Counterspell instead. But this was already like a small concession because, well, how am I able to get through this? Multiple times dealing with my Sheoldred cast, which is the only source that would allow me to win the game in 2 minutes 40. So there's the Malcolm attack. Maybe drawing more and more gas. Makes my Necropotence worse, makes the Toxic Deluge worse, and Toxic Deluge with all these counterspells in hand isn't too impressive anyways. So at that point I just decide to concede the game. And yeah, maybe a bit too early, but I think it was okay. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and see you in the second session against Nifmizzet Parun.